Welcome, everyone. We are talking bro science versus real science. I am your host, Rob, the Godfather of Truth, and this is.
Your co-host, Chris, from On a Build.
All right, all right. I hope you guys are ready. We're going to touch on some real, probably touchy subjects for a lot of people. Bro science versus real science. Right now, real science is real heavy in the fitness community. You see a lot of people coming out, relying on case studies, practicing these things. Some things are going a bit over people's head, but there's a lot of application in it and things like that. And then you still have a good core of people that practice bro science, or even a good mix. Hold on one second.
Okay. So, what the fitness anthem? You ready?
Microphones flex like a barbell set. Rob spitting facts, no sweat, no regret.
What did you
Chris
do?
with the manna, built from the ground. Pumping out wisdom, pound for pound. Ruthless on the mix, sharp like a blade. At Farmer Studios where legends get made. What the fitness? The vibe is raw, no sugarcoat truth.
You know what's crazy?
What the fitness?
I believe that's you saying what the fitness. I could hear you saying that in the background.
Calories burn when they hit the scene.
This is, I
Told
can't
you.
believe That's crazy, Evan.
We're gonna have a theme song every episode.
Every episode.
We'll go different genres.
Like, how are they doing that?
Suno, everyone.
Don't tell him
Best name
that.
ever.
Don't tell him that.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Let me lower the volume.
And we are back live. Our guest has arrived.
Yeah.
Back on subject. We are talking bro science versus real science. Introduce yourself, sir.
So this might be news to you too.
Okay.
But I don't socially go by my legal name.
Okay.
I introduce myself now to people as Kale, like
All right.
as in the lettuce. It has nothing to do with that, but it's an easy memory.
Okay. All right.
So I went to school originally in New Jersey. I got an undergraduate degree from the College of New Jersey.
Okay.
It was exercise science, and then I went on to University of Bridgeport and got my chiropractic.
Okay.
So notably, I am a huge believer that everything that's specific to chiropractic as an education is pseudoscience.
Okay.
So if it's described as a chiropractic specific thing, it's probably not real.
Okay.
And I'm saying that from somebody who learned it, went to school for it, got licensed, is part of the whole thing. But
Practices
the
it.
profession is a bunch of bogus pseudoscience.
Okay.
The education portion, though, included basic sciences. So we had cadaver labs.
All right.
We had 6 human corpses that we cut open for 4 different courses: spinal anatomy, visceral anatomy, head and neck anatomy, and extremities anatomy. Each one was 16 weeks, 4 hours of lecture, 6 hours of lab every week.
Okay.
We did physiology, we did biomechanics. So the basic science education was legitimate. The chiropractic portion of it is trash.
Just layer on top of it.
So
Okay.
I preface that because in my experience doing what we're about to do, when I call out people for objective misinformation, the hardcore fanboys of those influencers will usually come out to defend their hero and give some sort of almost exclusively logical fallacy responses because they can't argue with the merit of this is objectively wrong.
Gotcha.
And one of the most common ones is the ad hominem. I don't put on any of my social media what my profession specifically is. So you would have to go to my account that I commented and go to that. See that I have a business account.
Comment
go
again,
to that.
so they know.
And then, was that?
Comment it again so they know.
Yeah. So it's like I'll comment something like, this is objectively wrong. So they're upset because their hero is being called out for being wrong. And how could they be wrong? I mean, he says what I believe. He must be right. So they click my profile, no information. They click that I have a business account, no information on that for what I'm specifically doing. So they click my website where you can book stuff. And then they look for it and like, oh, they come back to the comments and like, oh, you're just a chiropractor. And it's like, cool, that's true, but I'm also correct.
Yeah.
Like what he said is objectively wrong. Telling me that I can't be right because of my profession is called an ad hominem logical fallacy argument. The other most common logical fallacy that I get is the straw man, the appeal to authority, and the bandwagon.
Okay.
And we'll hit. I know we'll hit those because specific pieces of those come up when we go through what we talk about.
Okay.
So.
Oh man, it's gonna be great.
So
I'm gonna sit back and relax.
So for anybody who hears this and I'm calling out your favorite influencer,
Let's go.
telling you that they're wrong and you're getting upset about it, one, I don't care that you don't like my profession. I don't either. And two, it's objectively wrong. If you have a problem with that, show me data that tells me I'm not right. Don't just say you're a chiropractor or he has a PhD or he has 1 million followers, because these are all they're all logical fallacy arguments that don't hold merit to a debate of actual science.
There you go. Okay. Hey, you guys hear it. So this is what it is. We're going to get into this bro science versus real science.
I feel the
We're gonna
heat.
what?
I feel the heat. Let's bring it.
Moving on. All right. So let's get into a few different subjects here. I'd actually like to start with Chris. What is something early on that you believe that you carried for a long time that took a minute to kind of get over?
Come back to me in a second,
All right.
please.
Well, Corey, how about this? Or Kale, excuse me, sir.
Babe, you can't say that.
No sweat. I appreciate it.
You probably don't have any that you followed based on your background. It's really been like checking the boxes as you've gone. So as you've walked along this journey, what is some you've come across that you've actually like watched trends and watched people just like in herds flock to? Just give me your top one.
So there was one that came up this year that when I heard it, it was kind of, oh, no shit, this is true.
Mm-hmm.
But in 8 years of what they describe as evidence-based education, and this is something that almost everybody listening is probably still believing, because I kind of just allowed it up until recently, earlier this year, is just the idea that food has calories, and calories are part of the metabolic process of digesting food and utilizing it for what we describe as energy.
Okay.
So calories are a unit of energy.
Yep.
By definition, it's the amount of energy, the amount of heat energy required to raise 1 liter of water by 1 degree Celsius. Some people will argue and say it's 1 gram of water, 1 degree, and that's a calorie with a lowercase c.
Mm-hmm.
The calories that we describe in food are just actually kilocalories. It's 1,000 of those. So 1 gram is equivalent to 1 milliliter. 1,000 of those is 1 liter. 1,000 small c calories is kilocalorie. That's what food is defined as.
Okay.
So the definition of a food calorie, as they describe it, would have been the heat energy required to raise 1 liter of water by 1 degree. The way they determine that is they take your food and they put it in a machine that they call a bomb calorimeter.
Mm-hmm.
They fill the outside of it with water, and then they literally light it on fire. The amount of heat that exhausts from that flaming food process will heat up the water, and that's how many calories the food has.
As in particular, yeah.
The trouble with that is that calorie, by definition, is a unit of energy, as we said. And if you look at the law of conservation of energy, the equation does not include mass by design.
Yeah.
Calories have 0 mass because calories are a unit of energy. Energy has no mass. So if we're consuming calories, the way that people describe it, if I consume 2,000, 5,000, 1 million calories, I've gained 0 mass because they're themselves 0 mass.
They're just transferring from one.
So
yeah.
it's not, you're not consuming calories, you're consuming mass. You're not using a thermodynamic process of combustion the way they test the food. The way that we generate energy, the energy substrates are the macronutrients, the carbon chain molecular structures. Those are run through chemical reactions to give the final product of additional ATP. ATP is the molecule that transfers phosphate that allows the processes of human physiology to occur.
Actually work, yes.
And that all that process is completely absent of thermodynamic, like in the sense of combustion, lighting things on fire.
Any type of yeah.
So it's just a conversion of donating electrons, moving things around, enzymes that cut the carbon chain down to different structures, basically just moving molecules around. And the carbon chain molecules that you eat become you. So your muscles are the amino acids that you've ingested.
Yep.
The adipose tissue is the fatty acids that you've ingested. And then the glycogen are the carbohydrates that you've either ingested or have created through gluconeogenesis pathways. But calories as something that we're consuming is misinformation.
It's more of a measure, a
And-
baseline.
And the funniest thing about it is, absent of reading the label and saying like, I ate this whole bag of whatever and it was 200 calories.
Mhm.
How do we in the fitness community generally describe your caloric intake? You measure your grams of fat, your grams of carb, your grams of protein, and then so now you have a measurement of the physical mass, which is the piece that you actually need to use to describe mass gain, mass loss, whatever your goal is. So we have that measurement, which is the one that actually matters, and then we multiply them by arbitrary numbers to get larger numbers to discuss in conversation. And then when it's time to go into a cut, you talk about reducing calories, quote unquote. And so then you're not taking the calorie number down. You're going back to the measurement of mass that you have and subtracting mass,
Yeah.
and then multiplying that back to the original number that you describe as calories. So it's like, why don't we just talk about the mass? You have 200 grams of protein, you have 100 grams of fat, you have 200 grams of carb, whatever it is, and you multiply those numbers to give you your calorie count.
All right. So now, do you might think that stems from lack of wanting to properly educate people?
I'm not exactly sure the root of the calorie reference. I think it's probably in the sense that people don't understand chemical equations of electron donation and conversion and all the chemical processes that actually happen. So the only way they can make sense of it is like, oh, I ate something and I have physical activity and I'm exhausting heat off my body. There must be some sort of heat expenditure or heat transfer in the system. So calories gives the impression that that whole process makes sense.
Of thermogenesis.
But at the ground level, the chemical portion of it is not a combustion type of equation.
So honestly, they should really be talking about thermogenesis from an ATP standpoint or energy, maybe conversion standpoint.
Yeah, because even the human metabolism is not a thermodynamic process.
No.
You don't have to add heat to it to have it exist. You have glycogen, which is you would take your glucose, and then you have enzymes. I don't remember specifically the process, glucose 6-phosphatase or fructose kinase. Those are things that I don't utilize them routinely, so I don't that's the kind of thing you can reference in the moment. But that's a chemical reaction step by step. It's not a thermodynamic reaction of adding heat or adding combustion. And there is heat exhaustion, but I think that's probably where the calorie.
But that comes from
came
the addition of adding the mass to the situation.
Yeah, I mean, every process that exists will generate heat. Because there's work. There's things that are changing, and the reactions create a heat exhaustion, and that's what your body temperature is in that 98-ish range. And so the food you're consuming isn't giving you the combustion type of reaction that the way they test it. And so just the base idea is that calories are just kind of an arbitrary thing that they made to describe the energy value of the food that you eat, but you don't need to create, it's like adding extra steps.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever seen Rick and Morty?
Yes.
You know the episode where they go into the small universe that Stephen Colbert is the guest voice?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I have these people, they're working and they're working for each other and they have currency and they do all this. And we just take energy off the top. And Morty's like, that just sounds like slavery with extra steps. So it's like that. Not that the slavery part's funny, but I always bring up the idea of like, that sounds like whatever it is with extra steps.
Yeah, it is.
So calories is just your ingestion of mass that goes through its chemical reactions to give you ATP in the form of what we use as human energy. And then calories are just that metabolism with extra steps.
I personally believe it would be a lot easier for people to achieve their goal without all.
With just mass.
Yeah. Like my reference for protein.
Yeah, like you're consuming X amount of grams of 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
You want to lose body mass. That's essentially what it is. People say weight. You're actually not, you're losing body mass.
Yeah.
You're taking away, you're utilizing the energy substrate that is stored in your body, either as adipose tissue, as protein and amino acids in muscle, or glycogen in muscle or liver. You're taking those and you're running them through their chemical reactions, after which the final product has to be exhausted. So, for example, you breathe in. What's the molecule that goes through your lungs into your blood? It's O2, oxygen. What's the molecule that you breathe out? It's O2, but with a carbon. So it's carbon dioxide. So now where did that carbon come from? It's an exhaustion from the food that you've eaten. The amino acids go through, they bind to urea and they get exhausted through the kidneys. You urinate any additional protein molecular structures that aren't working in your body anymore. And then a lot of it goes through the liver and through your bowels.
Yep.
But that's how you are losing mass off of your body. So if you're not consuming the mass that goes through that glycolysis pathway, the fatty acid oxidation pathway, or any of those energy pathways that they describe, if you're not consuming enough to fulfill the demand for that, your body will take what's stored in your body as fats in adipose, as we already described, glycogen or aminos, and then so you're taking it off your body, using it, and getting rid of the waste. So you've lost mass. So calories have no place in that because you're talking about consuming mass, exhausting mass, and getting rid of mass.
And so my aggravating point now is lateral, which that goes to exercise, now, energy burning. So now you on the nutrition point, which is sticking point for you, and now you have people, I have to burn this many calories to do A, B, C, and D when it doesn't work like that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So it's like people think the whole calories in, calories out kind of thing.
And it's funny because calories in, calories out is just a proxy with added number. It's the extra steps portion
Right.
of mass in and mass that's being utilized as energy substrate.
Right.
So you had said something I wanted to make a comment on. It was
As far as transitioning over to exercise?
yeah.
Okay. The whole,
How many calories you want to lose? Yeah.
Yes.
So people are like, oh, I need to burn X amount of calories. Okay. So let's go backwards through that math equation that we use for no reason. You want to burn 90 calories. So remove 10 grams of fat, quote unquote. That's according to that equation that they give you, 9 calories per gram of fat.
remove that from your diet.
Take that out. So you didn't remove 90 calories, you took out 10 grams of mass.
But then also, in context, it might not even transfer to the goal you're trying to achieve.
Right.
Because those 10 grams of fat, you actually might need those. And your problem is your glucose levels are too high because your liver is overpouring. You know what I mean? Everything's overpouring into
Yeah.
fat cells.
Right.
So you're not burning enough mass energy to do what you need to do because you believe you're trying to burn calories when actually you need to be I have fat mass, I have water. Your mass is muscle, skeletal, everything. So you have to utilize the extras for energy. And when your body doesn't have extras, now it goes through a whole new process of what do I take in and how do I utilize it to do what I need to do.
Yeah. And then on the same topic, another myth, like insulin resistance is not a real thing either. It's a bad explanation of how the process is actually working. It's a system called the Randall cycle that every cell in your body has an idea how much energy substrate it needs to go through its process.
Yep.
So assume, for example, that every one of your cells is like a house in a neighborhood, and that like the streets are your blood vessels and the driveways and the sidewalks are the capillaries that dump everything off. And for visual sake, assume that every one of those has a capacity to fill up to 100% as if it were like a phone battery. So you eat food, any types of food. If you have carbs, your blood sugar will absolutely raise pretty quickly. When it does, your brain says, oh, blood sugar, higher than normal, insulin, get out there and go do your job.
Yep.
So insulin, unless you have type 1 diabetes or some insulin production error in your genetics or as a disorder, insulin will work. It is released by the beta cells of your pancreas. It grabs the glucose, brings it to the cell. If the cell's capacity for energy substrate is sub 100, it can take the sugar in and use it. At some point, the cell's energy substrate is 100%. It's at capacity.
Yep.
So back to the example of the house, the insulin dumps it off as a delivery, and you open the door, and you're like, hey, energy substrate. You look back, it's 100%. I don't need it anymore. So you close the door. You refuse delivery. So insulin did its job. You just didn't accept the package. The delivery person did the delivery. So then the sugar didn't go into a cell, and it comes back into the blood circulation. It's read by the brain, release insulin. A new insulin grabs that same glucose, brings it back to the same front door of the cell. The cell delivery is refused. So that glucose goes back into the circulatory system. And that's what they're describing as insulin resistance. Insulin's not resistant. It did its job perfectly. It showed up with the package. The cells refuse the package because they're overloaded with energy substrate. So that's an overeating pathway. It's a combination of eating fat with sugar at the same time, which is not actually a good thing to do. The final piece on this is that human diet doesn't require eating carbohydrates at any point for any reason ever. It's not a necessity. We can have debates about this. People will argue like, oh, carbs are necessary. And the reality is they're not. Your body will adapt and create any glucose that it needs as long as you have sufficient volumes of fat and protein to do all the other processes. It's a process called gluconeogenesis. And if you stop eating carbs and stop bringing carbs into your gut through your food ingestion, then your gluconeogenesis pathway becomes more efficient because it needs to.
Yeah.
So like right now, I'm still eating a lot of carbs and I'm working on tapering out. But anybody eats carbs like me or any of us, your gluconeogenesis pathway is not ticked up really high. It doesn't need to be because you're bringing carbs in exogenously. So why create them? You have them. But if you stop bringing them in, your body needs glycogen for the muscle activation. Your body needs glucose for nervous system energy. So you don't have it bringing in from the outside, so you'll make it. Fatty acids, gluconeogenesis. It's a pathway that becomes very efficient if you allow it to.
Yeah.
So to bring it all the way back to the topic, the myths is you don't need to eat carbs, you don't need, the calories don't exist, and insulin resistance is not a real thing. So I brought 3 in instead.
Hey, look, see, we can talk about one, we came with 3, but you guys hear the truth here. So like you can reset your metabolism. You can do things that are actually healthy to, have your body function properly, your liver, and doing what you say. You heard Kale over here. Glucose does its job. It's you that has to do it.
Yeah, the big issue there is glucose, carbohydrates are easy. They're inexpensive. They're easy to get. They're easy to prepare. They create the rewards pathway in your brain, same as certain drugs. It's physiologically addicting. And there's actually only one that I'm aware of. There's only one naturally occurring molecule of consumption that exists with both fat and sugar at the same time naturally. Do you know what that is?
I do not. Go ahead, fill me in.
So it's milk from mammals.
Okay.
So breast milk will have all 3. But it'll have some level of carb, protein, and fat. And by design, because the idea is like if you don't consume it, you'll die. And like you're not cognizant enough to understand like, oh, I have to eat this. I have to choose that. So as an infant, you're getting most of your nutrients from the breast milk. And so you're being provided something that is neurologically stimulating, so you come back and do it again.
Gotcha.
Eventually, when you wean off breast milk, then that's when the history of humans, not just the last few thousand years, but the millennia of existence of the species of our evolution, would essentially stop eating carbs unless it was the only option. So you always hear the hunter-gatherer. The gatherer was the backup. It was like, we just killed the bison. We ate the whole thing.
Yeah.
But like the whole herd just watched their friend get murdered and ripped apart. So they're not going to stick around.
Yeah.
So when you finish making tools with the bones and making fabrics and whatnot with the hide, and you eat all the meat, now it's time to move again. That herd is gone. So you have to go hunt for it again. You have to go look for them. So in the meantime, you're transiting around and it's like, okay, we're hungry, but we don't have an animal to eat. So that's when they started just picking what they could. And that's not the primary. That's just the backup.
Yeah.
But in modern day, carbs are everywhere. They're cheap. They're easy.
Well, and the combination with the fat, what you're saying. So like leading off of what we actually needed. And then now you have the rate of obesity and you look at the foods that are being consumed, it's the combination of this type of fat and this carb, and it's like, ooh, this is good.
And fat and carb together is both dangerous, but also neurologically, it lights you up.
That's it.
It is giving you the addiction pathway pretty heavily, especially when it's sugar.
Yeah,
So like technically speaking, every carbohydrate is sugar. It breaks down all the way down to its monosaccharides, which is almost always glucose.
Yep.
So the only common examples that aren't are going to be honey, fruits. Those are fructose.
Naturally.
The lactose is in, I think, milk products and whatnot.
But dairy.
But like most of them are going to break down to glucose. So people are like, I don't eat sugar. I just eat complex carbs. And I was like, correct. And every one of those complex carbs breaks down to glucose.
Yeah, at some point.
So yeah, you eat potatoes. That's technically not glucose direct, but down the chain, it's going to become glucose.
Yep.
And a potato is just the inside of it, at least the skin is different, but the inside of the potato is literally just carb. It's just a huge starch molecule. It's in enormous chains of carbon that break all the way down to
Backed up
glucose.
a little bit of water, and yeah.
Yeah. And it's the fat and the sugar combo is extremely intensely. It lights your brain up like, oh, let's do this again. We love that.
That's the addictive. Yeah.
I'm addicted to carbs, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. My biggest issue right now is cereal. I'm working on tapering out of carbs, and that's the hardest one.
Cereal. What cereal you eat?
Oh, it's embarrassing to even admit, but it's I like this recently. I've been dialing in and really crushing Reese's Puffs.
Oh, that's not bad.
That's not bad.
Oh.
I mean, no breakfast cereal is real food. It's just dessert that you eat in the morning.
That's it.
Like
Yeah.
pancakes and
They get you
waffles and
going.
cereal.
There you go.
All those things are just dessert products that you eat
Yeah.
first thing in the morning. But
We gotta have it. You know.
So how do you feel about the nutrients on that box?
they're mostly fortified.
Right.
So is it good? I'm not gonna go that far. Is it better than nothing? Probably.
Yeah.
So like not having any iron. I mean, if you're eating red meat, you get your iron. If you're eating if you're eating whole food sources, you'll get your nutrients. But if you're not eating those things,
Yeah.
if you're getting them through cereal, I would suppose it's better than not getting them at all.
Correct.
I mean, even you gotta eat quite a bit of red meat too to like hit your daily. Like iron is one of those things that you will miss the mark if you're not eating grains like the right type.
And yeah, iron for most men, iron isn't usually an issue.
No, it's not an issue.
Women, it's more common to be a potential problem with the menstruation cycle and monthly bleed out. But
yeah.
even then, as long as you're consuming enough, it's usually not an issue unless the menstrual cycle is a super heavy flow. That's one of the common ways that women will get an iron deficiency and then the anemia that follows. But yeah, iron is most dominant, obviously, in red meat because you're eating the hemoglobin in the red meat, which is
Just
what makes it
convert.
red.
Yep. Yeah.
And red
Or
meat
animals.
is I mean, carnivore is the diet that humans should eat because you're essentially eating the physical body of something that is very mirrored to what our structure.
Our structures, yeah.
And so, like, we're not birds, so like white meat is okay, but red meat is more similar to our structure, and it's a full spectrum amino profile. It has the iron. It has a lot of the micronutrients that are the same thing that our body needs.
Yeah.
So red meat is going to give you the best of the things that you need.
Yeah, even from an organ structure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And even like that one too. Some people are like, what about organ meats like liver? It's like liver's fine, but if you eat it a lot, liver's purpose is a detox.
Mhm.
So it's something that you can eat, but I wouldn't make a habit of it because what you're eating is that animal's detox system. So it's like you're putting in a lot of the things that animal was attempting to remove.
Yeah. You get little bits, for
Yeah.
liver health, stuff like that.
Yeah, like intermittently, I wouldn't assume it'd be a bad thing. But if I was like, I'm eating liver every night, it's like you're probably poisoning yourself.
At some point. All right. Well, we'll move on to segment 2. We'll get a little interesting this time. We're gonna kind of dig down the influencer lane. We're gonna call cap or fact.
Okay,
Yes.
this will be fun.
Yes. So I know you have your things that you don't like that you see every day.
Every day.
online.
Working in a gym.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, give us one. We'll go ahead and pull it up. We can talk about it, or we can, let's get on subject. So, what's your top one right now?
I think the biggest issue is the trends that come in and out.
Okay.
So the most recent trend that's been dominating a lot of the social media that's been brought to my attention, because I don't follow these people. I avoid them on purpose because the reality is I can't learn anything from them. And I've heard people like, that's not a good attitude. You can learn something from everybody. And it was like, I'm not going to learn something from somebody who is giving bad information and then dumbing that bad information down enough for somebody who has no background in anything, anatomy, physiology, biomechanics. You have to simplify it for the everyman.
Yeah.
And you're also giving bad information. So no, I can't learn anything from you dumbing down wrong information.
Yeah.
The current trend, I'm not going to say it's necessarily wrong, but it's being overblown as the ultimate is the long length muscle training.
Okay.
So
All right.
the part of that's the biggest error, the misnomer, the actual wrong piece is they always use the phrase stretch position. position is a word that describes position, as in it's not moving.
Gotcha.
If you're training a muscle in a lengthened position, the muscle's not moving. Muscles that don't move don't grow. Isometric holds don't make muscles thicker or stronger, unless you're just testing its strength specifically at that range of motion isometric contraction.
More stability.
Yeah, and that's what planks are. Core exercises are stability exercises, which are training your ability to hold that position longer or tighter.
Okay.
It's not making the muscle stronger in contraction relaxation. So the current trend that I see everywhere, all the influencer tryhards are really big on this long length muscle. You got to train the muscle in its stretch position. And again, stretch position is wrong. If they want to describe it, lengthened range of motion would be a more accurate way to describe that.
Okay.
And there's probably there's I'm going to say scientific research, and I'm putting that in sarcastic quotation marks because it's some of the worst low level bad research design that you've ever seen.
Okay.
So it's the kind of thing where it's like we had 20 subjects, and it's like, all right, that's not enough. There's not much you can extrapolate from 20 people, no matter what.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, 20 untrained subjects. And I was like, okay, I can't use that for anybody who's trained ever.
No.
So a lot of those have similar starts. One of them that I've read was describing the long length, as they called it, versus the shorter range. And it was for a biceps curl with a dumbbell, but it was a preacher curl.
Okay.
So the funny thing about a preacher curl is that if you stand in anatomical position with your arms out, neutral, palms face forward, the biceps muscle is neutral length in its position. If you extend your shoulder backwards, you've lengthened the bicep to essentially its peak length.
Yep.
If you flex your shoulder, you've shortened the muscle.
Yep.
So a preacher curl, by its definition, can never be a, quote, lengthened range exercise because you've shortened the muscle from neutral to a shorter position in its starting point. So then the second point, which is bad, is that a preacher curl is approximately, 45, 60 degree angle?
You get different ranges, but
In that range, right?
In that range.
45 to 60.
Yeah.
So the lengthened portion of that, when you flex up, is very directly against the gravity of the free weight.
lever.
Because it was in this particular study, they did a dumbbell.
Okay.
So the dumbbell plumb line of resistance is always 100%. It's 90 degrees straight to the floor. It has to be. Gravity pulls it straight down. It's never anything else unless it's on a track. But preacher curl is not on a track. So plumb line straight to the floor means at perpendicular to that is the peak resistance of that weight, which would be about here. And then they tested it against the top range of that same exercise. So now the dumbbell is literally just sitting on top of your forearm. Your bicep isn't under tension when the muscle's anchored, balancing on top of your forearm. It's like if you hold like a broomstick on your palm, you're not holding the resistance of it, you're just stacking it. And if it's stacked, the resistance is effectively nothing. So they tested a muscle where it was under resistance appropriately versus one that essentially wasn't under resistance at all.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh man, the longer range grew more. And I was like, yes, because it was under tension. You didn't test long length for short length. You tested a muscle that was under tension versus a muscle that wasn't under tension. And you can't be surprised that a muscle under tension grew more than a muscle that's not under tension. We know from the decades of all these different research that mechanical tension is the primary driving force of stimulating hypertrophy.
And that's
protein
because
synthesis.
in preacher curl, you lose the long head as you go up. No?
Well, yeah, just even the idea that you've already shortened the muscle is there's not a problem with that point. It's just with a dumbbell, once you get to here, there's no resistance on the target muscle.
On the target muscle, yeah.
So that was one example. Another example of an article from that lengthened range is better was they did a 110 degree squat, which would be just below parallel,
Yep.
versus a 60 degree squat, which is essentially a quarter squat.
Yeah.
Again, you're not testing long versus short length. You're testing a muscle that appropriately put its position in the range against the target resistance versus one that really didn't take a whole lot of target resistance.
No.
Like if you quarter squat, how much of that weight is actually hitting your quads hard?
Not
Some of
full
it.
from like proximal.
Yeah, your
all the
knee
way
your
to
knee
distal.
is moving, and your knee joint movement is moving the resistance. So the quad does do some of the work, but how much work are you doing in a 60 degree squat compared to 110? It's poor methods. The research design for both of those was just awful, and that's of course there's plenty more than that. The only one that was reasonable that I remember reading was about the calf, but even then they did calf like below to neutral, they did neutral to above, and then they did whole range. And I think, if I remember correctly, that one had a statistical significance, but not a clinical relevance, which is different.
Okay.
Because statistical significance just means that the numbers have a specific p-value, but that doesn't necessarily translate into clinical relevance where it would be measurable to a point of being worth anything.
Yeah, like you 20 people can do it this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not the kind of thing where it's like, oh, it was clear that the long length group grew 5 centimeters in total mass, and the short length group grew 1 centimeter. It was a negligible improvement, and there was more in the lengthened, but at that point, you've also limited your muscles' control over your joint.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, maybe you got a little bit more hypertrophy that might not really even be seen from other people in a social setting, but you've also not trained the muscle's full capacity of its ability to move that joint. Which, if you continue to train heavy on one part of the range of motion but not the other, that weakened part of the range of motion is now the weakest portion of the chain.
Yeah.
Which makes it more likely to get injured or have problems occur. So I have no problem with the idea of long length training in length and range of motion. I mean, I do it too. And in a bicep curl, I would do the preacher curl. Sorry, not the preacher curl, the incline dumbbell curl.
Yeah.
Incline dumbbell curls is increasing the length functionally as much as possible without being unsafe. And then I would do a standing neutral curl, and then I would do a preacher. And the last one, which would be the only different, would be a high cable outer curl.
I guess.
And those are really the only 4 exercises you can do for bicep.
Did you hear about the clown curl?
No.
The one that you're upside down on the bench. Switch it up.
Clown.
Yeah.
curl.
Called a clown curl. So you're upside down on the bench.
So like a
doing
decline bench.
And you're curling it that way.
So that would be most likely I'm going to say an extension on increasing the range, but to a point that's not necessarily physiologically beneficial.
Yeah.
And at that point, you're putting so much anterior force against the joint capsule and some of the structures there. It's
That thing is that they're about to do on a decline bench.
Yes.
Oh, and look who it is.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No surprise.
Oh,
we already talked about it.
Man, look at that coincidence. That was the click. There it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Not my bad. Here, let's listen. Let's listen.
So he's lying flat.
No, you're good. I just cut it off because Corey was talking, or Kale was talking.
That's
sorry.
Hunter Labrada, right? Yeah. So
Yeah.
that he's lying on a flat bench.
So that's what they call. So all right, I've seen
Yeah,
this. I didn't know what they
I heard
call it.
about it,
They
yeah.
call it a clown curl.
That's what they called it.
And that's the appropriate name for this exercise.
Literally.
Yeah.
The lying on the flat bench is not the worst thing. Lying on a decline bench is incredibly stupid.
I honestly feel like there's been doing this a while. 100 ways better to build biceps without tearing shoulders out of your socket.
Yeah. When I saw it, that's the first thing I was thinking.
Yeah, as soon as I saw it the first time, and I'm like, oh, this is about to be injury. Like a rip pec, a rip
The
something.
bigger issue is the connective tissue on the front of the shoulder.
That's what I'm saying.
You're putting so much lengthening tension on that,
Yeah.
and then loading it. So that's like another thing. The lengthening fascial planes isn't necessarily a problem, but if you lengthen fascial planes to such an extent and put so much tension on the joint and then load it. So like squatting on your heels is how, prior to modern day bathrooms, that's how humans had their bowel movements. You would squat on your heels and you would poop in the dirt.
Do what you do.
And that's how, if you look at toddlers, that's how they do things, because it's genetically the right thing to do. So they're
And the way the body works.
So if you
Yeah.
see a toddler running around and they get tired, they'll squat on their heels to rest. If you see a toddler running around who's still in diapers and then they have to have a bowel movement, they'll squat on their heels to do it. It's genetically appropriate. Squatting on your heels is not bad. It's a physiologic movement pattern for specific things that we do. Squatting on your heels and then loading huge amounts of resistance is not the same thing, and that's a problem. So anybody that'll come up again. He's one that does that full range. You notice they abandoned their team full ROM thing because it's not valid. Yeah. And that used to be their entire brand, but they just they didn't say like, oh, we were wrong. They just shied away from it. They're like, oh, now it's long length partials and upside down biceps curls. until the next trend comes, and then they'll just jump on the next trend and stop doing that. And then when you ask them about it, it's like, oh yeah, we know we didn't really do that. Like there's one where they literally tell him like, we saw a video of you saying that the only reason you started doing bodybuilding is to prove that your methods work. He's like, I never said that. And then they show him the clip. It's like, the clip is right here. You said that.
Whose account is this?
That's Mike Israetel.
Okay.
Yeah, he is a self-proclaimed exercise scientist. I say self-proclaimed because his PhD, if you've seen recently, was just dragged all through the internet because it was like the worst project you've ever seen. He essentially had this conclusion in his PhD thesis that humans who have athletic attributes tend to be better athletes than people who don't exhibit the same athletic attributes.
That was why the whole like he's not the school kind of was like, I'm done with you after that?
It was, yeah, the PhD thesis had thousands of errors.
Yeah.
And it had data that could not physically exist. There were copy and pasted sections, but like all that stuff aside, those are clerical type of errors. Like you typed something wrong, you copied and pasted, whatever. That I'm not angry at that. It's just the fact that you got a PhD to tell us that people who have athletic attributes are better athletes. Like, oh, if you run faster, jump higher, and are leaner, you'll be better than somebody who doesn't jump as high, doesn't run as fast, and is fatter. I was like, you earned a PhD for that?
Yeah.
And then one of his defense arguments is, oh, well, that was only one part of my PhD. I also had education, like classwork. And I was like, right, but the classwork that you got is what gave you the education to do that PhD. So that PhD thesis is a reflection of your education, which suggests that your education was poor. And if you watch the way he exercises, it's very obvious that he doesn't understand anatomy or biomechanics at all.
Yeah, his beginning was what, a power lifter?
Yeah, and like
and
maybe
it wasn't the greatest powerlifting.
But like, and I say that confidently that it's very clear by the way he does his exercise that he does not know anatomy or biomechanics to the extent to which he can teach somebody else. Like if you want to go do your stupid exercises, that's fine.
I agree.
If you want to go do these upside down curls and then have whatever, all these things that you do, fine. Don't teach that as if it's absolute science because it's not.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of thing where in most biologic situations, the idea is that the form dictates the function.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So simple examples, elbow joint is a hinge joint, which tells you it can only move in two directions. Mm-hmm. The shoulder and the hip are ball and socket joints, which means if a movement exists, it can do it. Mm-hmm. And so like that's two simple examples of form dictating function. So if you understand the anatomy, you would look at the things that he does and it's like, that can't be right because I understand how the system works and that's not how the system works.
I see a lot of like, it's you're forced into a pocket that you don't belong. And then it's like, I'm gonna make the muscle work like this.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's so much misinformation about, oh, this is the best exercise for this muscle, or you do this to make this muscle work over this one. And most people are referencing that from their very limited understanding of muscles attaching from point A to point B, or not even that. Like that they might not even have that level of understanding and just be like, the muscle crosses the elbow. So if I flex the elbow, it's this, this muscle works. The one I'm alluding to without saying it is if you do a biceps curl, we call it that because the biceps is the primary mover. Yeah. Always the prime mover. And then people will say like, oh, if you do hammer curl, you get more of the brachialis. And it's like, yeah, that's not how that works.
No.
That's because when you turn your forearm, you are getting less resistance, less tension through the biceps. I agree.
Yeah.
But it's because you're adding forearm musculature. You can literally see it when I turn. That turns up, and your brachioradialis muscle pops up.
Adding more secondary, a third. The things that weren't working before. Yeah. Now it's like, let me activate.
Like if your elbow is flexing against resistance, then brachialis and biceps are both working every time. It's impossible for it not to.
Yeah.
Turning your forearm doesn't tone down necessarily any of the activation of those muscles. It just invites other people to assist. So if you and I have a tug of war and it's you versus me, you turn your forearm, now it's me and Chris versus you.
Yeah.
So like, okay, that means it's not that you are taking less force, it's just that we are taking more. Does that make sense?
No, it does.
Yeah.
I definitely understand. I want the people out there to understand this.
Well, that last part didn't make sense. I said that wrong. It's not that you've lost tension. It's just that we're using it more than you are.
Yes. I got you. I understand.
Yeah. Because you don't tone down the muscle that does the action by inviting somebody else to assist it, it still does it. It's just now
You
it's
got more
it's a team
soldiers.
effort.
Yeah, you got
Yeah.
more soldiers to carry the load.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of that, and I'm sure we'll go over it.
All right. All right. So exercise as science, the lengthen aspect is something that really bugs you. Out there on the influencer scene, how do you feel about this perfect physique thing that's going on? Like, you have a lot of people chasing. Some of these things are unachievable. Like, you have a great physique, all right? You're a lifetime natural athlete. All these things takes a lot of work, definitely. You know, but now you have people trying to achieve other levels of things. I mean, how do you feel about the glorification of that?
In the sense of chasing something like an Arnold Schwarzenegger or like a Ronnie Coleman, or
I mean, all the way up down the line. Like you have an 18-year-old, you have a 20-year-old, you have a 21-year-old, and somebody like yourself, you walk down the path, right? I'm gonna learn A, B, C, D. I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna do this, that, and the third. But I mean, 80% people or kids aren't doing that. They're looking at things and they're like, okay, that's the body I want. Go into great lengths. I mean, do you think that's affecting the health business and actually the foundation of it in general?
yeah. So I think the bigger issue is when you have the young kids, the teenagers and young 20s who want to generate a physique. You're not at that point old enough to have the physique of somebody in their 30s.
You hear that?
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter because your physical body didn't stop growing until around that age, 18 to 20-ish, give or take.
Okay.
So if your body is primarily is focusing on this, and I'm going to clarify even before I say it, exercising under resistance as a teenager or younger does not stunt your growth as a human.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah,
I was hoping
the
you'd say
only
that.
things that'll stunt your growth is if you damage the growth plates, if you have some sort of malnourishment issue, absorption issue, those kind of things. Somebody with Crohn's disease might not grow to their full potential if they don't catch the problem first because they're not absorbing the nutrients appropriately.
Okay.
So that's an issue of nourishment, not an issue of stimulus to the musculoskeletal system. So there's been no legitimate evidence to suggest that exercising under resistance as a child will affect your growth patterns
So
in
start
your
early
adolescence.
and start the right way.
But the issue there is your body still is focused on growing bones, growing the rest of your body. So the nutrients you eat are not priority specific to muscle growth, where once you're 21, 22, or 25, whatever it is, older, and your growth plates are fully sealed, your physical body's not growing taller or longer anymore, then the nutrients you eat can be utilized to feed your muscles. And an important detail that I always teach people is that we always talk about muscle growth. They say hypertrophy defined is cell growth, which is not incorrect. It's just, in my opinion, incomplete.
Okay.
So hypertrophy, even in dictionary, defined cell growth as opposed to hyperplasia being cell increase in cell number.
Yep.
So cell growth is, in the way I look at it, is more of the result, not the mechanism. The mechanism is take the word and actually define the word. So split it apart. Hyper means excessive. Trophic is in reference to nourishment or feeding. The word literally means excessive feeding. So if you have a cell and you feed it to its baseline, you feed the amount of energy it needs for its baseline activity, and you don't feed it any more than that, does that cell grow? Of course not. It has no energy to grow. But you've fed it its energy substrate to provide whatever it needs to do in its own process. And now one of its process is protein synthesis stimulated by resistance training. Now you excessively feed it and it has nourishment to build itself up. It's like if you're going to build a house and I give you enough bricks to build half the house, then you can only build half the house.
Yeah.
But if I give you enough bricks to build 2 houses, you can finish that first house.
And start working on another one.
So it's when you're younger, you can't get that. People always describe it as muscle maturity. Ultimately, what that means is that you don't have enough time behind you, and until you're fully grown, you don't have enough. The energy substrate is still being shared with other growth patterns.
Got you.
once the growth of your full body, the bones and whatnot is done, now when you stimulate the muscles, they can be stimulated for their growth. And that, again, that's going to, if 10 years later, now you have muscle maturity because you've been doing this for 10 years.
Yeah.
So somebody who's been doing it for 3 years can never look like Ronnie Coleman on Olympia stage.
No.
And another issue is the point you made about the way I did it. I was 17 years old when I started lifting.
Okay. Yeah.
And I didn't know a whole lot about it, but once I got interested in it, because a buddy of mine dragged me to the gym and I hated it. Every day I was super weak, I was scrawny, everything hurt. Every day I was sore. I felt everything was like, I'm sore and training, but I'm not seeing anything
happening.
because that's how you start.
Yeah.
There's going to be that 6 to 8 week, give or take, grace period of you're going to see your strength increase, but your body won't look different.
Yeah.
And you might gain weight, but your body doesn't really look different.
Actually change. Yeah.
And everything sucks because you're sore all the time and you don't see, the only thing you're seeing is maybe a little bit of a strength gain. Eventually I started to get the response of hypertrophy and I really, it kind of flipped and I was like, ooh, I like this. It feels good to do the exercise. It feels good to have the muscle mass. It's exciting. So when I was junior in high school and my counselor calls me to her office and is like, hey, it's time to think about what you want to do after school. You're graduating in just over a year. Are you somebody who wants to go to college? Do you want to do a trade? Do you want to go into the workforce? Like, let's start talking about these things so it doesn't catch up to us too late. So I was like, yeah, I'm interested in going to college. What do you want to study? I was like, I really find interest in exercise science. And she opened the book and she was like, all right, here's a list of schools that are exercise science. And I chose one, I went to it and learned everything I could. I took every course they offered. Like there's core 1, core 2, and you choose like 3 courses each out of like 6. And I chose all 6 in both cores. And my professor's like, these are electives. You can choose anything. I was like, I'm electing to choose the course because I want to learn about this. And so I did 4 years exercise science, 4 more years with, again, we already talked about how part of that was chiropractic bullshit pseudoscience, but huge amounts of basic science that's very valuable.
Yeah.
And so my goal was, if I want to do this, I want to know how to do it.
Gotcha.
Where all these other young kids are, I want to be muscular, but I don't want to waste time to learn it. Because, and some, maybe there's some arrogant attitude of like, I can just read about it online. And it's like, but can you though? Because you're going to start learning about things you don't know, you've never heard of. You're going to see most of the muscles are named in Latin. Are you going to understand what that means? Because the Latin term of the word usually means something.
Yeah.
And sometimes it describes function, sometimes it describes position, size, but that's not necessarily the most important thing. But other words that we use have specific meanings. So like, are you going to start your own online education of like, I'm just going to learn it myself? Are you going to go through and learn medical terminology and learn? Are you
going to start from the bottom? Yeah.
Yeah. Are you going to learn that osteo means bone? Are you going to learn that chondro means cartilage? And like, maybe those things aren't the most important for every detail, but there's going to be something in that medical terminology list that shows up that you need to know. And then from there, are you actually going to learn human anatomy? Because if you're not going to actually focus on it and learn it, anatomy is not this easy subject of like, oh, biceps is right here and it flexes the elbow. Yeah. To understand anatomy, to understand function, you have to first understand the skeletal system. There's 206 bones. For exercise and hypertrophy, for bodybuilding and the dream body, the perfect body, you don't need to know all 206 precisely. No. You can understand that there's 8 bones in the palm of your hand, 5 that are the length of your hand, and then 14 in each hand for the fingers. And the same thing with the toes. You can understand that there's 7 tarsals, there's 5 metatarsals, and 14 phalanges on each foot. Some of them are important, like calcaneus is important for where the attachment of the Achilles tendon is.
And that's almost 50% of your bone mass there, huh? In your hands and feet?
So let's see. It's 28, 56, 76, and 16, 92. Yeah, it's over. About 50%. Hands and feet are like over 100 already.
Yeah, see?
And then like some of them are easy because ribs are just named 1 through 12, left and right. Spine is just C1 through 7, T1 through 12, L1 through 5. No, naming them isn't the issue. It's understanding their shape.
Yes. And
then the joints that they create, the shape of their joints, because that's the stuff that matters. So first you have to know the bones.
Yep.
And in my opinion, it's really important to understand, you don't need to memorize by name the bony projections. So I'll give you an example. The biceps brachii muscle. If you read the attachment sites online, are you going to understand in your home education that the supraglenoid tubercle is the long head's proximal insertion, and the coracoid process is the short head's proximal insertion, and that 50-ish%, 40 to 50% of the population has a fusion of those muscle bellies that drives into the radial tuberosity of the radius, and then there's a myofascial expansion called the lacertus fibrosus. Like, are you gonna? If I just give you all that, does that mean anything to you? If you don't understand where this comes from,
80-90% people know.
So and it's like, oh well, that's not important. It's like, it is important because those attachment sites dictate where the tension is being generated.
He just told you where the short head, the long head attach, and what bone to, and what joint, and what they move. He just told you all that.
And yeah, so that means the muscle's not attaching at all to the humerus. That matters.
Yes.
That means in its transit, it crosses 3 joints. It functionally can participate as a prime mover for 3 different joints. It's not usually a big prime mover of the shoulder. The delt and the pec do such a better job in that. There's a muscle called the coracobrachialis. They're going to do a lot of that flexion action. The biceps isn't usually going to participate hugely in that. But the elbow, biceps dominates. Proximal radial ulnar joint, biceps, you can literally see it. It dominates. So it's a simple thing like that, understanding the bones first, and then understanding where muscles attach to the bones. Again, do you have to memorize supraglenoid tubercle? No, but you have to know that the attachment line is on top of the cup portion of the ball and socket joint. So that's where it's attaching.
Yes.
And that's important. And then knowing that the biceps tendon runs in front of the shoulder right here. So these are simple details as an example of this enormous anatomical project. 206 bones, 600 or 700 unique muscles.
Oh, I got shoulder pain, and you're like, my biceps tight.
Yeah. and then the kind of thing where it's like you're doing an action because you read online on Wikipedia that the primary function of the upper pec includes flexion and horizontal adduction of the shoulder. So you're doing this kind of action, but all you feel is tension in your shoulder. And the next day your front delt is sore, but your pec isn't. How do you fix that? If you don't know the anatomy, you probably won't know how to fix that.
Yeah.
But if you understand the anatomy, there's simple ways to put more influence on the pec versus the delt.
Yeah.
And anybody who's out there and like, oh, I do this exercise to isolate this muscle, if they believe that they're isolating, they don't know how the system works. And if they're using that phrase, they're choosing a misinformation phrase. There's no such thing as muscle isolation. Muscles never act alone to move their joints. They always work in concert with other muscles. So like this action that we talked about, that flexion, horizontal adduction movement, upper pec, front delt, you cannot physiologically separate them in that action.
Yeah.
Biceps and brachialis, they can't be separated in flexion of the elbow. So these are some of the simple nuances of, you have to know the bones, because if you don't know the bones, you don't understand where the muscles go and how they work. If you don't know the bones, you cannot understand joints, because joints by definition are 2 bones that meet at their end.
Yep.
You have to know the surface of those joints. So the ball and socket versus the hinge versus all the different subtypes of joints.
Tells you your lever systems.
And this is coming all the way back to another thing I hate about influencers, these science-based influencers, as they call themselves. They're not science-based. They're referencing really weak literature. I'm not going to say research evidence, because the research sucks.
Yeah.
But they're citing people who do these little research projects. Like Jeff Nippard just made his own little biomechanics gym. And it's like, you are not doing research in this little like room, this little closeted sized gym.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh, but we're going to bring people in. It doesn't matter. That's not, scientific research isn't done by your little lab at home.
Yeah.
And another thing about a huge portion of why the research is so poor is you can't control enough variables to be able to test the one thing that you want to test. So like one example I saw was good form versus bad form. So they had people doing a biceps curl with like tight, holding something and pulling it, versus just like kind of throwing the weight. And like, oh, so to balance out the intensity, we increase the resistance on the bad form. It was like, so you're not testing good versus bad form. You're also testing heavy versus light resistance.
Resistance, yeah.
Which means you can't tell me that the bad form, good form is the variable of the final result, because the resistance was different.
Yeah.
So in that example, like, okay, maybe let's say, for example, the bad form group grew more. Is that because they had bad form and form doesn't matter? Or is it because the resistance was heavier?
Or, and also too, like, are you talking bad form biomechanically, or are you talking bad form because you're referring to a specific exercise.
Yeah,
you
where
know?
and that's another one. Influencers like to talk about, oh, this is good technique. Based on what? You don't understand biomechanics.
Yeah.
How are you going to tell me what good versus bad technique is if you don't understand the joint surface and how that joint physiologically moves?
Yeah.
So I've seen that. They're like, oh, good form. You do the bench press this way, like a flat bench with the high shoulders. And they call what are the guillotine press for upper pec.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that's good form to injure your shoulder.
Yeah. You know, you have a version that you've created that works and you found a comfortable way to move it without injuring yourself. It doesn't make it biomechanically sound
Right.
or the proper way
Yeah.
to exercise the muscle.
So the influencers call themselves science based, but they don't reference any actual science.
Yeah.
When you talk about the Jeff Nippards, the Mike Israetels, the Brett Contreras, all those people who claim to be the smart guys who know everything, how many of them have you learned anatomy from? Like, when was the last time you heard Brett Contreras or Jeff Nippard like, hey, let's learn the anatomy of the biceps brachii. It attaches to these bones, which means it can perform these actions because these joints move this way.
Yeah.
When was the last time you heard any of them talk about the physiology of muscle contraction, the action potential, reaching the sarcoplasmic reticulum to release calcium ions, binding to their sites on the tropomyosin to twist it out of the way.
Makes the
Now
muscle.
the action or now you have the power stroke of the myosin, the actin to pull the filament in. ADP to break it, ATP to reestablish. Like, when's the last time you heard that from an influencer? When's the last time you heard sliding filament theory or anything biochemical or any legitimate physiology other than the kind of shit where they say like, oh, cross-sectional area is smaller so the muscle heals faster? And it's like, okay, that's, I guess, physiology, but like, did you learn something from that? So they call themselves science-based, but science in that context would be like basic science, anatomy, physiology, biomechanics. They're referencing research evidence, which uses the scientific method and becomes science down the road. But you're getting some master's level research study that had 20 people performed by a master's
It
student.
stops at theory. It never becomes.
And they're like, oh,
law.
long length partials are better than anything. It's like, all right, we're done. Let's do that. It's like, that's not science yet. It's an introductory, because even like, you can tell that these people are probably just reading abstracts. And like the author's conclusion is that long length grew more than short. So there you go.
Yeah.
But then when you read it, it's like every single one of these research articles is like, this is just a preliminary study, and there needs to be more research done on this topic to make a determination on whether or not this is valid. And they're like, oh, long length partials, it says it right here. It's like, right, but the caveat, the disclaimer says this is an introductory study that doesn't really tell you anything.
Phase 1.
So something like this, like the germ theory, that's
Okay.
the one that obviously it's not specific to exercise, but
Yeah.
germ theory is one of those things in science that is so supported by scientific research that it seems nearly impossible that anything is going to come up to debunk it.
No.
So like when that like sliding filament theory, if you hear the word theory in a science world, that's not a hypothesis. That's the word hypothesis is one we use for that. Theory in like social settings is like, I have a theory, this might work.
Yeah.
But theory in science means it's been tested so heavily that there's essentially no amount of information that would be able to flip the idea of that.
Yeah.
So germ theory would take some outrageous new discovery to turn it over to say that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So scientific theory is as close as you're going to get to fact. And then something like anatomy, you talk about like this is the radius and the ulna. That's not science in the sense of like we measured and observed, like or measured and created these test studies. It's like observational. We've for thousands of years we've been cutting open dead people, and they're pretty much exactly the same. This is the humerus. This is the ulna. That's a basic science that's not going to change unless a new discovery comes up. Like for example, in now the Fascial Research Society. So I talked about muscle attachments. Most people learning muscle attachments learn origin insertion, bone to bone. But something like 20% of all muscle fibers throughout the entire human body don't attach to the skeleton at all.
Okay.
Because they have myofascial expansions where they attach to other muscles. Have you heard the word aponeurosis?
I have.
It's where two muscles are binding to each other through a fascial line. So those muscles attach to each other. They didn't attach to a skeleton.
Okay.
You have part of the glute attached to the sacrotuberous ligament. The distal end of the glute, 70% of the muscle fibers become continuous with the fascia lata and the IT band, so they don't attach to the skeleton. So the origin insertion model of bony attachments is wildly incomplete. And these are all the things like if you know the origin insertion model of bony attachment, you're light years ahead of the average person.
Yeah.
But you're still behind because you don't know anything about fascia.
Yeah. Which is a far undiscovered area that's
And
not talked about.
So, and I know we got way off topic, but
No, you actually, to be honest, like diving into your area of expertise, like I asked you that question to open the door to go into that. So
like the original question was about the perfect body. So I got on a tangent about the lack of education, but this is specific to simple things like exercise, which is inherently not dangerous unless you're doing really stupid stuff. So like lifting a dumbbell, unless you do something where you put the dumbbell over your head unstable and it drops on you, those things are not inherently dangerous. You can create danger in them, but by themselves are not terribly dangerous. But then we're going into the idea of I want to get more muscular, so I'm going to start taking steroids.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, so now you're talking about endocrine. The endocrinology system of human anatomy or human physiology and biochemistry is so extraordinary. It's the kind of thing that even the people who research this and do it for a living still don't have the full handle on it.
Never ending.
And you're going to get some guy who's a local gym goer and he's like, yeah, take this much. And it's like, okay, so what's this person's background? Do they know biochemistry? Do they know hormone interactions? Do they know, for example, like, do you even know the pathway of how that hormone is generated? And you're going to take advice from somebody who doesn't have any level of education on taking exogenous hormones that it doesn't matter how you do it. Like, oh, I have a doctor who monitors it and this guy knows what he's doing. Taking exogenous hormone for the purpose of hypertrophy, not as a hormone replacement with a very specific monitor, for the purpose of hypertrophy in excess is never safe. So having a blood testosterone level notably over 1,000 is not healthy. Yeah. And like, oh, it's not bad for you. And it's like, okay, is that based on your understanding of endocrinology and its full extent? Because if testosterone elevates, do you think that happens in a vacuum? Because the next thing, one simple example is that estrogen elevates. And then, oh, we'll just take an estrogen blocker. And I was like, oh, that's it? So what about downstream? What happens next? Yeah. So every hormone essentially interacts with 1,000 different parts of your body, including many other hormones. So the perfect body.
It's a coupling effect.
Yeah, like I complain about the lack of education on the exercise portion, which is not killing people. Steroids are.
They are.
Yeah. And even worse, worse, you get people who start taking insulin. Insulin's anabolic. And it was like, okay, correct, I suppose, in the vague idea of like being anabolic, but it's also incredibly dangerous because back to the Randall cycle, we started with that. Your cells are not accepting delivery. You're pumping more insulin. The cells aren't taking it. Yeah. It doesn't matter. So now that's creating a really dangerous situation because your cells aren't going to absorb the glucose that's being brought to them and you pump more insulin. These are not good ideas.
Yeah. No, you're definitely right about that.
Yeah. So the perfect body problem is I want the immediate response. I want to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was 35 and winning Olympia. I want to look like that now when I'm 20. Okay. Sam Sulek did it. I was like, right, but he's a freak.
Yeah, and he's also on a lot of
and like that's the same thing when people reference something like, oh, Ronnie Coleman did it. I was like, Ronnie Coleman is a unique person in the sense that like when you talk about bodybuilders who make it to that level. Pro, like if you become an IFBB pro, you're probably a little bit genetically better than the average.
Like you see it in guys like that from the beginning.
And then if you're an IFBB pro that qualified for Olympia at any level, then you're an outlier of an average human. Average humans, no matter what they do, are not going to become Olympia top 10. No. That you have to have some sort of genetic predisposition towards increase in muscle mass and whatnot. So you take somebody who is an actual average within the bell curve without standard deviation, that person's not going to become Mr. Olympia.
They think they do.
But the outliers do. So Jay Cutler, Ronnie Coleman, all the guys that won Olympia, every one of them is an outlier to the generic population, at least one standard deviation, if you want to describe it that way. Ronnie Coleman was an outrageous outlier among the outliers.
Yeah, he was not
like you and I are in the bell curve of relatively average normal. Yeah. And then Jay Cutler is an outlier. Yeah. Ronnie Coleman was an outlier to Jay Cutler. Yeah. In that context. Yeah. Jay was also an outlier to that. So comparing the two of them together is not the best, but Jay was an outlier to the group.
The group.
Ronnie
yeah.
Coleman was an outlier to the group. And the group are outliers to people like us.
Yeah.
So
No.
it's like you're 18-year-old kid that, you know, you look at your genetic predisposition. Your parents are 170 pounds naturally. You're not going to become Mr. Olympia.
Yeah.
Your 6-foot dad at 160, 170. You are not going to be Mr. Olympia.
got
Have you
a
ever
lot-
seen
you got
Ronnie
a
Coleman's
lot of
mom?
work.
Ronnie Coleman's mom was jacked.
I was about to say she's not a small woman.
I forget what the clip was. She went on stage once and they said something, and she did one of these, and it was like, oh my god, her arms are bigger than mine.
I'm gonna pull that up. Ronnie
Yeah.
Coleman's mom. Hold on. But we appreciate your insight on the anatomy, and I think a lot of people really misunderstand. Here she goes.
You looking up Ronnie Coleman's mom?
Mhm.
Jacked. She had
Oh yes.
she had
Jesus.
notably muscular arms.
Yeah, look at that. Her arms are bigger than mine.
Bro.
Yeah, she's no joke. So it's like Ronnie Coleman came from somebody who probably herself was an outlier in the ability to grow muscle,
Yeah.
which made it easy for him in comparison to people like us.
And did they ever show his dad? They never showed his dad, right?
I've never seen
His dad. I mean, if she was like that, then
I
she
can't
was,
imagine
man,
what his
his
dad looks like.
was probably a machine.
And like
Yeah.
perfect example, Ronnie Coleman made it to the Olympia stage in that 80s, 90s era where
The har-
everybody
the
was
hard-
bigger.
Yeah, I'm about
Yeah.
to say.
And he was there before he started taking steroids to that extent.
Yeah. He was getting mopped his first round, like the first part of his career, but he was still running with the big boys.
And then he started taking steroids, and it was like,
Game
see you
over.
guys never.
Yeah, game over after that.
His back is fused, right?
Yeah,
he's-
he's pretty beat up.
Something like 14 or more surgeries between his hips, lower back, and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Pretty beat up. And I guess the last one like ruptured recently, didn't it, this year? Or
He was in the
something?
hospital earlier this year, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been a long road for him since he quit.
But and that's one of the things people see. 8-time Mr. Olympia, Ronnie Coleman, best physique you've ever seen. I want to do what he does. I'm like,
Yeah.
well,
Do you
maybe not.
really
a good-
want to?
Do you want to do what he does? Because he is unable to walk now. Like maybe
Yeah.
do what Jay did. Jay did it in a more healthy fashion.
I mean, it's
Obviously,
crazy to have so much muscle that they do a back surgery and it rips the pins and plates that they put out.
Yeah.
And that is downhill from there. But it's like how much muscle do you really have to like
Oh, well,
rip
he was
out
deadlifting
something?
and squatting. It was like deadlifting 800
I'm
pounds.
just like
That deadlift is crazy.
crazy. Yeah.
Which is funny because deadlift is not a hypertrophy designed exercise.
No, it's definitely
Functional.
been a thing in bodybuilding for a while.
I don't know why. Because
It-
like my question is, if you're deadlifting, what day do you put it on in your split? What muscles are you targeting?
It's always been either back or legs. That's always
Which
been
is
a thing.
funny because like back, upper trap, levator, scapula, rhomboid, maybe. That's it. It's not like developing the broadness of your back. It's not.
So would you categorize it in like a posterior chain movement?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a functional kinetic chain pattern, which is I think it's hugely functional.
Yeah.
You're going to use most muscles from your feet to your
To your
shoulders,
Yep.
and none of them are getting enough stimulus to demand growth.
Okay.
And like, sure, they will grow. You're
Yeah.
not like if you deadlift every day for a year and you hadn't exercised before that, you absolutely will increase mass.
So
But
now, pause. I want you to finish. Now, I've always accumulated it to the bone growth. It's the overload on the body and the bones.
So increased density.
Yeah, the bone density has to increase, and therefore the muscle. It just has to. It has to. Like
But
there's-
yeah, I mean, any resistance training will manage bone density.
But just
increase from
deadlift
baseline.
specifically because of what you're saying. Like it's not a movement that's hypertrophy.
Yeah, it's
there.
it's compressive. It's challenging the bone. It's a great exercise to maintain bone density, especially as you age.
Yeah.
I don't know if the bone density is going to make a huge change in your weight, and
Okay.
it certainly won't make a change in your physical appearance.
Yeah.
Because bone density doesn't grow outward. It's the same size. It just gets more stuff in it.
Yeah.
And even then, bones are spongy in nature. It's not like they're dense in the sense of like becoming rock solid. It's just instead
two
of being
different
really
types,
wide
right?
and frayed, it's tighter.
Okay.
But if you take somebody who's never exercised and you just have them deadlift twice a week, every week for a year, they'll have hypertrophy in their hamstrings, their quads, their glutes, the lumbar erectors, probably rhomboid, upper trap, levator. I doubt you'd have a notable hypertrophy in your lats. I don't imagine you'd have a huge amount of hypertrophy in your calves. Forearms for gripping, probably. Bicep, tricep, probably not. Deltoid, probably not. But then you get to a point like where we are. Deadlifting isn't going to make any of us hypertrophy to a notable extent.
No.
Unless it's your upper trap.
Yes.
Because that's the one that you're probably going to pull up a little bit. So you're creating that stimulus to grow. But are you going to get hamstring, quad, glute, lumbar erector hypertrophy? And not to the extent that a targeted exercise would offer that. So your RDL lights up your hamstrings so much better than a traditional deadlift.
Yeah.
If you're trying to grow your
That's
quads,
definitely proven.
deadlift isn't a large enough range of motion, and you're sharing with so many other muscles. If you're aiming for glutes, same exact answer. Not in a large enough range of motion, sharing too much with other muscles. If you're training lumbar erectors, it's a terrible mechanism for hypertrophy. It's great for stability, but hypertrophy requires concentric eccentric contraction. Your lumbar erectors, when you deadlift appropriately, aren't really doing that. They should be holding pretty stiff.
Yeah.
Like your spine stays mostly in a stiff position through for any version of a deadlift. So which muscles are you really growing? And if you're doing a deadlift, why are you not just choosing better target exercises for that particular muscle?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But functionally, there are few exercises that would exceed what a deadlift is offering.
Yeah.
And especially for a health standpoint, especially as you age in decades beyond 30, so 40, 50 and beyond, every decade you age, your strength, balance, mobility, stability becomes more important. And the deadlift provides huge value for all four of those factors
Gotcha.
as you age. So if you can deadlift equivalent to your body weight on the bar and into your 50s, 60s, 70s, you're decreasing the likelihood of problems like slipping and falling, balance issues, the types of things that kill people.
Okay.
Because statistically, it's something like if you fracture your hip after 60, like the average is 5 years of longevity beyond that. It's something crazy like that.
It goes down.
Yeah.
Really.
So it's like if you hear about a geriatric person fracture their hip, it's a horrible thing to recognize, but they're probably not going to live a long life beyond that, which sucks.
Or definitely not a quality.
Oh yeah.
Quality life. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, my grandmother's an example. She broke her all that late in life. She's in no wheelchair now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And yeah, so functionally, it's strength, balance, stability, mobility. Those are the big four.
I got one argument, not me personally, for everyone out there listening. What are your thoughts on like deadlifting and squatting, the whole myth or whatever you want to say, of creating creating a waist that's blockier?
Yeah, that one comes up a lot, and I think a lot of people kind of misunderstand that. So I think in the bodybuilding realm, when you look at the mass monsters on stage, the Derek Lunsford and people like that, and then even worse back in the Ronnie Coleman era, right after him, the Phil Heath era. Like Phil wasn't too bad, but a lot of those guys had that awful distended gut. I think that comes more from insulin and HGH use more so than the exercise. So like Sean Roden's waist was like, you know, he looked
Very
like a
aesthetic.
princess waist. Right? He was
Yeah.
super small. And I don't know if those exercises are creating huge amounts of width, because the width would be excess hypertrophy in the obliques more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
But like the external oblique is a really flat muscle. Internal oblique is pretty thick, but it also doesn't have anything inside that's pressing it out. So like your bicep grows, it can't grow in because the humerus is there. So when it grows, it gets thicker out.
Mm-hmm.
But the internal oblique doesn't have bony structures that it's pressing against. So if it grows, it'll expand your waist size probably a little bit, but it also is growing a little bit inward and just making everything a little bit tighter, which isn't bad. I mean, that's what we do when you brace, that Valsalva type of brace.
Right.
You're creating tension that stabilizes. That's what core stability is.
Right.
So I don't know if a deadlift is going to make your waist wider. I think the issue with the gut issues, the gut problems that you see in bodybuilding are more towards some of this excessive drug use more than anything.
You guys heard that, right?
Yeah.
Because like, I mean, I don't deadlift, but I train obliques intensely. So I don't, you maybe have seen me at the gym occasionally doing it. They're called windshield wipers.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
hang from the pull-up bar
Yeah.
and you swing your feet rotational with your body parallel to the floor. And I do that with a 10-pound dumbbell squeezed between my feet. So it's not like I'm not doing this lightweight calisthenic thing. It's like it's huge challenge to the obliques. I've been doing that for 18 years, and like my waist is 30 inches. So it's like clearly I'm not getting thickness in my waist. My waist hasn't increased in circumference in 18 years.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't think it's muscular in the sense that people like the way that people are like, oh, I can't train obliques because I don't want to be wide.
Right.
I was like, I think if you're worried about being wide, train your transverse abdominis so you can control sucking in.
Exactly.
The vacuum pose that everybody calls it.
I feel a lot of people don't do that at all.
Yeah. The reality is in terms of functional health, if your transverse abdominis should be fully active from the moment you become upright when you wake up in the morning until the moment that you lie down to go to sleep at night.
Yeah.
100% of the day. If you're not lying down, transverse abdominis should be fully active to brace the entire system.
Yeah.
And the better you have control over that, the more stable you are.
Correct.
It's the primary core muscle that people talk about.
Yep.
And the best way to train it is by sucking your belly in as much as you can and holding it and being able to talk through it. So like I'm doing it now. If you can kind of hear them, I'm strained a little bit because there's effort behind it. But I'm able to speak because I have transverse abdominis control. Where people who don't, it's the kind of thing if they try to do that they'll kind of talk to you like this.
And they also rely on the whole wearing
the waist trainers and the lifting belts.
Yeah.
I love the guys that walk into the gym already wearing the lifting belt. I was like,
Yeah,
were you out there lifting your car?
No, they came out the house.
Yeah.
They drove all the way here.
Like, did you deadlift your car in the parking lot before you came in here? Because otherwise, there's no need for that. I've seen people wear the lifting belt for like biceps curls.
Yeah.
There's some exercises I question the point of it.
I think, in my opinion, and this is adapted from the American College of Sports Medicine's guidelines from years past, it's something in the range of like 85 to 90% of your 1 rep max in compressive or flexion loaded exercises. And other than that, you probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like if you're squatting super heavy, absolutely. If you're deadlifting super heavy, you better do it.
Yeah.
But like you're doing bicep curls, you don't need it. You're doing deadlifts that are below 85-ish% of your 1 rep max. It's better to not use it because you want your muscles to create bracing and not external bracing.
Yep.
External bracing invites your muscles to become weak.
Very dormant. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an ultimate example of if you don't use it, you lose it.
All right. Well, Kale, this is what we are going to do. This was actually a great episode. We do have quite a bit more to cover. I do want to finish up. We're going to do a part 2.
I'm thrilled by that. I know because we got I'm not gonna say off topic. We just had relevant tangents that went long.
and that's why I didn't.
Great information, man.
Yeah, I didn't want to shorten it up or anything. This is perfect for the viewers. So, you guys stay tuned. Like this is just part 1. We still have we've got a couple games. We got some other things we want to go over, and really make this entertaining. So we're gonna bang out part 2 and get it to you too. So.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you for coming to What the Fitness.
Didn't even get to talk about the influencers.
No,
that's exactly why you need to come back.
We're coming back. We're getting on.
If any of the